Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest, Saul Cohen, partner and CEO, the Expert Eye. Saul, good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really great. It's really great to be on the show.
So we were just discussing before the show kicked off the World Cup and being in London. It's a big deal for the community. It's a big deal for everyone there. And you guys watched the game at 2:00 in the morning and saw the big victory, and you must be pretty pumped up about that.
Yeah, it's been great. There's something special about the World Cup. It's all just even people who don't like football sort of get really sort of sold into it, and love it. And it's a great game. Everyone's always watching it. We're all supporting together. The Mexico game was cracking. The Norway game was a little bit more stressful. But yeah, I'm sure actually the game on Wednesday is going to be very stressful. But I think it'll be high energy. I think it'll be a great game.
I don't have to ask you who you're pulling for in that game.
Yeah.
But what's your prediction? Do you think the boys are going to bring it home or what?
I don't know. No. Honestly, no. But I do think it's tournament football, and anything can happen. And actually, if I look at all the teams, none of them look like I wouldn't back any of them to win it. And obviously, one of the four has to.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's an out and out winner. I do think Argentina look as beatable as they could be, as I've seen them for years, and so. Absolutely, we're definitely in with a chance. Do I think it will happen? No, but But
you're going to be there pulling. You're going to be there rooting with all your might.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'd be foolish to write us off as well. So
I think
definitely could happen.
I think so too. Since my guys got eliminated quite a while ago, Team USA, I'm gonna pull for England. So. It's going to be an exciting match, and it's going to be a big deal. In England is football / American soccer. Is that the number one sport? Is that the biggest sport in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not. See, the US is really interesting. I've got a few friends in the US, and they're so sport. You guys love sports, right? And all sports, and you follow them all at different times of the year, and it's great. In the UK, it's literally there's football, and then there's not football. There are some guys they like other sports and whatever, but by and large, most of the sporting calendar is built around football. A little bit of rugby, a little bit of cricket, maybe a little bit of tennis and around Wimbledon time, but it's football by
so
a
this is
margin.
it. This is your Super Bowl right here. This is the big event.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll be pulling for you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Expert Eye?
Right. Well, what we do is we're accountants for successful for successful business owners, and that was what we started out as. I felt that there was there was just well, I started at PwC, loved the value that I added, but felt like there was a real gap in terms of I wanted to work with entrepreneurs directly and business owners directly. And when I was at PwC, we're working for stakeholders and, management and the board and all different stakeholders, but never really the entrepreneurs themselves. And I just thought that was a huge shame. And I really wanted to go out and work with the entrepreneurs directly. And that's why I moved out, worked with sort of the SME world, so the smaller, medium-sized businesses. And I love it because it's much more dynamic, it's much more creative. And I felt like they just needed different support with growth. As a result of that, we fell into tax planning, we fell into sort of acquisitions. And because of my background, I took to that like a duck to water. And so acquisitions is really the bread and butter of what we do. We've got some really good tax consultants who support us with tax planning. And yeah, that is we basically help successful entrepreneurs retire, and I like to say they end the game of business with more wealth than they would had they not have worked with us. That's our aim.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. What is it that drew you to entrepreneurs? What was it there that said, man, this is my calling. This is I wanna help these guys, in these small and medium-sized businesses, maybe larger as you grow on. But what was it that really drew you into that?
Do you know what's interesting? So I've always loved sort of business and creativity. I think I'm sort of a builder by nature, and I always loved watching these people who achieved great things, and learning about them. And I remember when I was young, it was Kobe Bryant, it was Michael Jordan, and Messi and Ronaldo, and trying to understand what is it that makes those people different. And one of the things that I really found is that business owners, or successful entrepreneurs, I should say, they're people who work really hard. But they have an incredible humility about them, and they're driven by an insane sense of purpose. And to me, I was wowed by that sort of combination. I thought it was a really powerful combination. And as I got older and sort of more experienced and learned more about the world, to me now I look at the world and I'm like, entrepreneurs are people who create positive change in the world. Without entrepreneurs, there's no positive change. And governments are the people who are meant to protect them and enable them to create that change. But often in today's world, unfortunately, governments are the guys who get in the way, and they try to take the credit for the positive change, but actually they just get in the way and sort of crowd out those entrepreneurs. And I'm absolutely driven by, if we can support the people who create positive change in the world, then and we can look out for them, then that's an incredible place to be.
I love it. I've never heard it put that way in all the shows that I've done. Entrepreneurs create positive change in the world, and I think that's true because they're always innovating, they're always being creative, they're always moving into that. And so that's a really neat way to put that. I really like that. And I liked how you tied that back to some of those sports figures who have an insane sense of purpose. What is it that makes those people great? What is it who make those business owners great? And there's a lot of business owners who do have an insane sense of purpose, who work crazy hours, who build something great. So I think you nailed that. And I'm also going to agree that government gets in the way more often than not, right? They want to tax and, do the things that they do. So you put this together, you go after entrepreneurs, you're working with them, and then you really find, your home, you really find your place, and it's in acquisitions, and that becomes the bread and butter of the business. And really, if an entrepreneur works with you at the time of exit, you're going to help them capture more wealth, hold on to more wealth than they would if they work, with somebody in the traditional market, or maybe nobody at all as they're going through the process. Did I get that correct?
Yeah. So I think Actually, so the life journey of our client, our classic client, is that they might come into us for tax planning,
Mm.
and then we'll save them a bunch in tax, and suddenly they're now putting a little bit of money away. We're saying to them, oh, well, why don't your business is doing really well. You've got some money to put away. You're looking at what to invest in. Have you considered buying another business? So we often will support them. We'll make an acquisition or two. Lots of our clients will make one or two acquisitions at least. Some of our clients are making one or two a year. Um, and then afterwards we set them up for the exit and help them with the exit. But what's really interesting is that you find is that entrepreneurship is an identity.
Yeah.
And so once they've made that exit, whatever age they make it, normally within 2 years we get a call and they say, hey, Saul, I've started a new business and we're going to need some help again.
And here we go. We're back at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So what are some of the tax planning strategies that you utilize with entrepreneurs to help them put some of that money aside so that they can free up capital to invest in other things like businesses, property, whatever they might be doing? What are some of those strategies that you utilize today?
So look, the truth is, it's really difficult to say exactly because everyone's different. I
Sure.
think that the general picture with the general purpose of tax planning is not to pretend like something is one way and let's just try and manipulate it. It's actually to look at what is the most effective way to structure your income based off of the current tax environment and the reality on the ground. And so sometimes that might mean, people take a lower rate of income and they take a higher dividend. Sometimes, quite often, one of the things that we will do is that, and this is, I think, a general principle, is that we only extract money that people need to spend. But money that people are looking to invest, we sort of keep within a corporate structure, because then often you pay taxes. I think this is the same in most countries around the world, right? You will pay taxes to extract money from a company, but you won't necessarily pay if it stays within the business. Then it's safe from personal taxes at least. It needs to pay corporation taxes, sure, but it doesn't have to pay personal taxes, and that's much more efficient in most countries around the world. So we keep the assets in corporate structures and create family vehicles and all of that sort of fun stuff. But I think that what I always tell people when they ask me for tax planning, I always say to them is like, think of tax planning as like you're going to a restaurant and you're giving them an order, and then the chef will go and see like what's available in in the kitchen and say,
Yep.
okay, that's great. I here's what I can serve you, and then this is what you get out with, and you normally get roughly what you want, but it's sometimes just the way to get there is different for everyone.
Okay, that's a great analogy. I like that. It's kind of the restaurant idea flipped on its head. Instead of you getting the menu and then you choosing an item, you go in and you say what you want, and then you go back and you look at it and you say, well, here's what I can give you, versus having something on the menu. Is that the way you do it? That's the way it works.
Absolutely.
Okay, I love it. So that's a bird's eye view of what the expert eye does today. Talk to us a little bit how you got your start. Where did this entrepreneurial spark come from?
Do you know what? It's hard to know exactly. I've always loved building and creating things. I used to, my parents thought I was going to be an architect. And because I loved creating, I loved designing buildings and all that sort of stuff when I was young. My dad had his own business, but it wasn't like sort of a huge thing. He didn't really want that. He wanted something that was just sort of provided for us, which was great. And that definitely was a part of it. But I think actually, when I joined PwC for a long time, I really thought that I was going to get wrapped up into that world. And like I was going to, I had my head down and I was working towards partner. And I think after a while, I just sort of thought, you know what, actually, I really want to go out and do my own thing. I want to be more creative. And I think by nature, I am a little bit more I think that's what it is that I've got that spark of creativity that, it isn't always there for lots of people. Lots of people, I'm quite happy to take a risk and, go out and do things, push forward. Sometimes, sometimes I don't see the downsides of that a little bit. I probably need someone who does a little bit more. But yeah, I can't tell you exactly where it came from. I just think it was always kind of there.
All right, so that's good. So I love it. So it looks like in your background you got, what is that? Some kids back there, a wife maybe. So you got a family.
Yeah. I'm a
Okay.
family man.
All right, you're a family man, so that's good. That's exciting. So I got to ask you this because I think it's always interesting. Family man, but you're willing to take a risk. So how do you as an entrepreneur manage risk and the family life together? Like is the risk too much for your wife? Does she say, what are you doing, Saul? You're gonna kill us? Or how do you manage that as an entrepreneur?
Well, I guess a couple of ways. I mean, look, the first thing was, so I definitely, I think had it have been up to me, I would have left PwC. Day day I left PwC, I would have set up my own firm, and that would have been it. And I would have just gone out and done it and made it work and hustled it out. But I didn't. Obviously, I was married at the time. I didn't have kids then. Um, and my wife was like, "Well, yeah, well, if we do that, well, what are we going to do for money? Like, what if the money runs out?" And that was like the first thing in the back of my head, just reminding me, okay, fine. So we need to. She needs to see a clear plan. So then I went out and I basically I took a job and I told them that I had another business when in the interview. So that gave me sort of the ability to run that job, to run my business on the side and build it on the side, which I did. And then when I got to a certain size where the business was big enough to cover my salary, I said to my wife, I was like, right, okay, I'm going to make the jump. And again, she sort of said to me, she's like, yeah, but what happens if you lose a client? So, so I realized, okay, she needs a bit of a buffer. And so I went out and got that buffer, and then I left and jumped and made the jump. I think that one of the biggest things that I learned along the way actually was never talk to your wife about cash flow. Yeah, there's lots of things that you can sort of share, and absolutely, you don't want to be one of those people who just sort of get yourselves in debt and put your life, your family at risk, and no one knows about it. But at the same time, I think there's just a general sort of acceptance of as a business owner, we just get used to these very crazy swings in terms of cash flow in and out of your bank. Because I think when you're running a business of a certain size, whatever your profit is, that's fine. But, there's often going to be people who owe you a lot of money, and there's often going to be, a large amount of expenses that are coming in and out of the bank account. And people who don't, you become a little bit desensitized, or at least I did. I became very desensitized to these numbers. And I think a lot of the time, your spouse at home, that they haven't necessarily become desensitized to it. So, if I was sitting there complaining about the fact that someone owes me £150,000, to my wife, that's like, oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? And to me, it's just another day in the office,
Right.
and I'm sure it'd be fine.
And you might solve it that day. You might solve it that day or that night or the next morning, and they might pay up, but she might not know that. And then 2 weeks later, she's like, wait a minute, they're not paying the bill. And she's carrying that with her. So that's good advice. Any other advice on managing the family relationship with the entrepreneurial freedom?
Yes, I do think there is a need to share. I just think you just need to be careful, like conscious of that when you are sharing. I think the other risk is that you don't share at all, and then your spouse
Right.
is like, "Well, what are you doing all this time? Like, are you are you married to someone else?" I was like,
Yeah.
Yes, my job." But yeah, no, I think I think it's really about a balance, and I think that in general, finding the right partner in life is really difficult. People, and I've got lucky that I've got someone who's, yeah, she's very risk averse, but she's also very happy and supportive for me to do my own thing and run the business. And, she is very supportive in that way. And you can't control that often. I mean, you can when you're making a choice, but you often don't know when you're making a choice.
Yeah.
But for me, that I was definitely very blessed that I found someone who is that supportive, because I think that, entrepreneurship, as much as it's tough on you, it's also tough on the spouse, because of the changes that you have to go through as a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it is tough on the spouse for sure. That's good feedback. And it is true that, finding the right person it's probably the biggest, and most important decision in your life, because if you saddle up with the wrong person, it's all downhill from there, or maybe all uphill, depending on how you look at it. But okay, that's really good. So I'm curious, in England, in the UK, working hours versus US hours. I'm wondering, a lot of people in the work, entrepreneurs here, they might work 60, 70, 80 hours in a week, in their business, whatever type of business it is. There's just a lot of work. Where you're at, is the work hours and the work timing the same, or is there a little bit more break in that?
So look, I have done a little bit of work from time to time in the US, and not a huge amount, but I've definitely experienced what it's like to work with US guys in the US and guys over here. I think compared to the US, your guys probably think we're a little bit sleepy, and you're probably right. We're just not as intense. In the US, people will make a decision really quickly. They'll move on it really quickly. They'll action it really fast. They're working much harder because of the fact that they're moving so much quicker. In the UK, things take a long time. Like funding decisions. You're going to be waiting on that for a long time before a funder's going to make a decision whether they're willing to loan against that particular asset. And so, because of that, because the cash moves, I think it's because of that. I think the cash moves that much slower. And because of the fact that cash moves that much slower, there's less intensity in the economy. And I think that means that the economy just works a little bit slower, and is a little bit less intense. I think from entrepreneurs, from what I can see, it tends to be a bit of a personal preference. Like everyone that I know, they do what works for them. I've always taken the view that I appreciate my business will grow a little bit slower, but I want to be there in my kids' lives. I want to be a part of their lives. I don't want to sort of grow this really big, fantastic, successful business and have missed their childhood. So, I mean, I'm still working late and I'm still working hard, but I try to make sure that, I'm there spending some time with them in the day. Doesn't always work out. And, sometimes we've got things that are urgent and pressing and deadlines looming, and acquisitions is an intense place to be, but I do try to prioritize that.
That's very cool. I think that's a great thing. So as you're building the business, where does the expert eye do work? Do you do work globally, nationally, internationally? Where is the segment of work that you're doing today?
Yeah, so when we started, we were exclusively UK. And then we started to work with some investors who were investing in the UK. And then eventually we started doing some of the work that we do, not all of it. So obviously we don't do tax planning abroad. But in terms of our reporting, acquisition strategy stuff, exit planning, all of that stuff, we do support basically across the world.
Wow.
It is. Yeah. Look, the thing is that acquisitions is the same in every place, really.
Yeah.
When you boil it down to the same fundamentals. So, yeah, I don't think that there are that many nuances in different places, other than, for example, in the US, things are a little bit more intense, and that it does change things a little bit. But things that wouldn't be glossed over in the UK, and then people might spend a bit more time on in the UK, in the US, people will make a decision on much faster. But fundamentally, the game is exactly the same.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you guys are working on a global platform. Basically that's where you're at. So who is your ideal customer? Like when you guys are saying these are the type of people that we want to work with, how have you defined that in your business?
It's interesting because I've got a book coming out in September, and in that I sort of define who the book is for, and I think that's basically our ideal customer. And in the book I say it's the sort of person who's built a successful business. The business runs well, it's profitable, and they're looking at what the next stage is. They're maybe turning around and saying, they've had the same accountant since they started, perhaps, and that accountant might have been really good at supporting them in the early days, but that now they're much more profitable. The business has grown sort of beyond what their current accountant is able to support them with, and it's right at that point where they don't know what they don't know
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Suddenly they're in a new environment. Maybe they're making multi-100,000 profit, or even just anything above £100,000 dollars in profit. That's where really the game starts to change a little bit. There's more they can do. They've got more flexibility. They've got surplus above their general day-to-day expenses. That's where we can come in and start saying, right, well, you know what, let's put a plan in place, have some tax planning, and then start making acquisitions, take you on a journey to give you what you want out of your life. For some people that's an exit, for some people that's just flexibility, whatever it is, we want to help them on that journey.
That's awesome. What are some of the tips what are some of the things that people should be thinking about, if they've got that successful business and, if they're, ready to take that next look? What are some of the preparation things they should be doing?
Well, I always say the first step is actually to get a valuation, because people always, it's really funny. Successful entrepreneurs, they normally know, we need to work on fact, and we make decisions based on fact, and let's gather all the information, then we'll make a decision, and then we'll execute on the decision. But suddenly, when it comes to selling their business, they almost forget those rules, and they just have an assumption in their mind about what their business is worth, and often get a nasty surprise when they actually see the reality of the situation, which I think is a shame. So I think, getting a valuation done on your business every so often is really helpful. It doesn't need to be like really complicated, certified valuation. I know in some countries there were certified valuers. You just want a line in the sand that you can measure yourself against that's good enough. And then, I've actually got a framework, so it's called the SCORE framework, which is which sort of runs through the key areas that you need to look at that will affect your valuation. Your valuation is made up of two very fundamental things, generally. Unless you've got like a really cool tech platform where you've got like an IP that's going to get sold for hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, whatever.
Sure.
Most businesses are sold for the cash flow that they're going to produce, the positive cash flow. And so the way we value that is we assign a multiple to the cash flow of the business, or EBITDA multiple. And so we take the earnings figure of the business. So obviously the earnings figure is really important.
Sure.
Very important, fundamental that you've got really good, reliable accounts, because otherwise it's a non-starter. We can't even have a conversation. So we get that profit figure, and then what we do is we apply a multiple. Now that multiple is the multiple that's given to that business absolutely depends on how risky an investor views that business as being. And so the more that you can do to reduce the risk, the higher that multiple is going to be. And the whole point of that SCORE framework is to reduce the risk in your business so that you can achieve a higher multiple. So S is systems and operational assets in the business, how you do things across the business.
Sure.
Yeah. C is your commercials. So What does your pipeline look like? Your sales plan? Who do you market to? How good's your brand? All of that sort of stuff. Why do clients buy from you? Um, O is the organizational assets, so the human side of the business, which is, if you think about what you're buying in an SME business, you're actually buying the team and their know-how and the human capital. So huge part of the business is in the organizational and human assets. And R is the regulatory environment. So, the legal and structural assets in the business. And then E is the cap. So E is your exposures. So that's any major risks to that business, any major risks to that industry. That's going to that's going to increase the risk across overall in the business, and therefore it's going to cap your multiple. So those are the sort of 5 things that you always want to be looking at, and each level you want to be sort of leveling up each of those areas.
Wow, that's awesome. So when we look at it, just to kind of repeat that, make sure I got it right. So you're looking at this score framework that you guys have built out, and really what we're doing is we're taking a look at the systems that your business has in place, and then from there we're taking a look at the commercials. What's your pipeline, your sales plan, your brand? Why do customers buy from you? And then number 3 is we're really looking at your organizational assets. So people are buying the team. It's the human capital that they're investing in to take this thing move forward. And then 4, we've got the regulatory environment. R, what does that look like? How does that impact the business? And then E, your exposure. What are your caps and your major risks? Did I get that? Did I nail that?
Spot on.
Spot
Absolutely
on.
spot
I
on.
didn't even use AI. I just did that the old-fashioned way. Okay, so that's really cool. So you run through that, and so there's you're looking at this cash flow position, and then once you look at this cash flow position, you're assigning a multiple, and that multiple is basically the risk of the business or the safety of the business. And so for the listeners out there today, would you mind giving us an example of a risky business with a low multiple and a safe business with a high multiple?
Yeah, okay. So let's think about a manufacturing company. So actually one that I saw recently, making £250,000 a year. Business was obviously based out here in the UK, £250,000 a year in profit. Now, the business had 3 major customers that accounted for 75% of the revenue. So that's a big risk, because if you lose any one of those, you're basically going to wipe out your profit tomorrow. So that's a big deal. Secondly, the exiting owner had a tremendous amount of knowledge in their head, and relationships and personal relationships with customers and suppliers. And there were not enough other touch points. There were other touch points in the business with those customers and suppliers, but they didn't have anywhere near the same level of relationship as the exiting owner. Again, another major risk. In this case, both of them commercial, but the second one, in terms of the owner, he hadn't the systems were not mature enough. There were systems in the business. It was a manufacturing business. They just weren't at the maturity that was needed for that business. And as a result, the multiple in that business, normally I would have said should be about 3.5. Business ended up selling for 550, and so just over a 2x multiple, because of the fact that it was so risky. And in that case, he didn't want to take out, because one of the things that I suggested was he might want to look at taking, if he's willing to sort of defer the terms, so take out longer payment terms on the business and make the deal less risky for the investor.
Sure.
Maybe take contingent fees or whatever. Then he makes the deal less risky. He'll get a higher multiple. But in this case, he just wanted the money out quick, so he got a lower multiple at rate in that case. In the opposite case was an electrical engineering company that we looked at, and their business actually probably about similar. I think it was a bit bigger profit wise. 270, I think they made. So it's broadly a similar size business. And that one sold at just over a 4x multiple. But see, what was really interesting about that one is it had a really, really good reputation with lots of high-end customers, including various governmental agencies across the UK. It was a fantastic, really good, that sort of niche leader in what they did, which was sort of water. They specialized in electrical engineering in water environments or wet environments. Very, very cool business. All the systems, all the know-how had been disseminated across the team. The exiting owner, he was responsible for business growth, but there were other people also responsible for business growth. None of the relationships sat solely with him. We knew that when I was actually representing the buyer in this case, but we knew that when he exited, the business would lose something special, because you're always going to lose something special when you lose the person who started that business. But we could see that wasn't going to be at all mission critical. And it was very easy for us to overcome. Therefore, really low risk business. And actually, 3 years later, it's grown tremendously and it's doing really well. So, and you can see it really does make a big difference, because obviously those two businesses were, in terms of cash flow generation, were very similar sizes, but one sold at just over 500,000 and the other one sold at just over 1 million.
Right.
So that's a really big swing on someone's wealth, that just from having the right structures in place.
Wow, that's amazing. One of the things you said earlier in the call is that, when people go out for evaluation, one of the things that can happen is, they kind of get a nasty surprise, right? Most people get this nasty surprise. And so step one is coming in and working with the expert eye and getting this valuation, excuse me. So we kind of know where things sit. And then once that happens, what we do is we work through the score framework. And if we work through the score framework, then we'll be able to turn this example of a manufacturing business with a 2x multiple into the electrical engineering company with the 4x multiple, right? That's basically what we're doing. So by investing in the framework that you guys have put together and the expertise that you're bringing to the table, you would almost expand the wealth by double if you use that analogy of 500K to 1 million. Is that basically how it works? And what is the time frame that you typically see from a company that comes in that needs work to the place where they get it up to where that electrical engineering company was?
Okay, so there's two really big questions. Yes, absolutely, that's the plan. Is it always double? No, it really varies. But the time frame is a really interesting question, because most business owners will come to us too late. They'll come to us when they're already tired and they want an exit like ASAP. And it's like coming to someone for inheritance tax planning after the person's died. There's not really much we can do right now. We can do an awful lot in advance, but if you're tired, you just want an exit, it's almost too late. I always say to people, ideally you want 5 years, but minimum you want 2. If you know that within 2 years you want to be selling, it's still worth having a conversation, because it isn't all or nothing. There's a very big gap between a 2x multiple and a 4x multiple, or between a 3x and a 6x. That there's quite a lot in between, and it really isn't all or nothing. And so the more that we can do, the better you can be. So I always say it depends how hard you want to work, but for most of the business owners that we see, it works much best if they're working over a 5-year period. It's much less stressful on them, on the business. It's absolutely doable to, I think, put everything that needs to be put in place in 2 years. But if you've got less than 2 years, there's still quite a lot that can be done to make sure that a deal actually happens.
Okay. So, and if we're talking pounds versus US dollars, a pound is worth about 1.35-ish dollars. There's roughly 35 cents difference between the two, right? So
Yeah.
when we're talking about, a company at, 500,000 pounds versus 1 million pounds, that is a significant amount of money. But if you're talking about, 1 million pounds to 2 million pounds or 10 million pounds to 20 million pounds, I mean, you're talking about significant difference in money and multipliers by being prepared. So the tip that I hear is that when you think that you want to do this before you're thinking about selling, like this is a part of your overall business strategy. This isn't part of like, oh, well, this has been a great run, it's time to exit now. It's, hey, in preparation for the time when I get tired, I should go through this process now so that when I am tired and I am ready to sell and I am ready to get there, my business has gone through all these, fundamental reviews and, adjustments and tweaks and changes that someone who's burnt out doesn't want to make, but someone who is energized and ready and just perfecting their business is already putting them in place. So the time is really now, even if the time to sell isn't for a great deal out in the future, so that you're prepared. Would you agree with that analysis?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you never sell a business, how amazing would it be to have a business that runs like it was ready for an exit?
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that idea.
I mean, I think that it's funny because most business owners, I think, become entrepreneurs because they want, or at least up there in their top 3 or top 5 reasons for being an entrepreneur is flexibility. And, actually, when we think about it, like sort of 5 years into being an entrepreneur or 10 years into being an entrepreneur, that almost makes you laugh because your business might have been successful and it might make you a really good wage. But for most of us, you never really switch off.
Yeah.
You're always in the business in some way, shape, or form. You always care about it. Like it never goes away. And having the ability to make sure that you're taking the steps to actually have the business run as it's ready for sale, ultimately that does give you flexibility to make a decision one way or another. Either I want to be an investor in this business and I'm going to take a step back. Maybe I'll fire myself as CEO and just sit on the board. And we've definitely had clients who've got to the end of the process and decided that's what they want to do. Or you go for an exit and you take a lump sum off the table and, you realize that I'm never going to be able to watch someone else run my company. So I'm just going to take an exit and let it fly without me. There's no right answer. It's just, I think the best step is in both cases to do the work to make sure that that's all in place.
And I love that. I mean, you are a smart guy. I mean, I really love the framework. I love the SCORE, methodology framework that you guys have put together. And I love the analogies of, what it really takes to walk through. So, for anybody out there listening and anybody who's thinking, man, I really want my business in that place. I hear what Saul is talking about. I know I'm not there today. How does somebody get to work with you? Like, is there a wait list of people, or do they call or email, or how do people connect with your team?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is always the best place. I mean, we're always posting on there. I can give you. We've got. We do actually have a booking link for just general. If people have we always do a free consultation if I've been on a podcast for your guests. So
thank you.
We could absolutely do that. Like it's a free consultation, absolutely no obligation to anyone who's listening to just sort of go through their business and say, right, here's the top 3 things that you could do to increase your valuation, open up a loop for them. Close off a loop for them, I should say. And then the third thing is I've got the book coming out, so I could give you the wait list for that, which is coming out in September. So
talk to us about the book.
So the book's called Finding Gold. It's about actually the process of making acquisitions. It does go through the SCORE framework, and it's got a bit of a checklist to try and sort of give you the ability to grade any business using that framework. It's sort of like I think it's a 50 question or 100 question checklist at the end of the book.
Wow.
Just to sort of help you grade any business that you come across. And yeah, it's really, I think that one of the biggest issues with selling a business is that people have never gone through the process before. They've sold houses and they compare selling a business to selling a house or buying a house. And actually it's a different process. It works differently. And I think that one of the best things that you can do to prepare yourself for an exit is to make an acquisition of some kind, go through the process once or twice before you actually have to exit, so you know what to expect. Because I think it's a different type of transaction.
That's awesome advice. So you're saying go through it, make a couple of acquisitions on your own, learn the process, learn what you're going to go through. It's not like selling your house. It's not like putting that out there. I love that advice. So Finding Gold, I love the title of the book. That's a hook right there, all in and of itself. Everybody wants to find gold. So I love that. The book comes out in September. Is it going to be available on Amazon?
It is. Yeah, it's going to be available on Amazon. I think we'll do Kindle as well. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay, what time in September is it launching?
So the date is to be confirmed, but I think we're aiming for middle of the month.
Middle of the month.
Yeah.
All right, I'm putting it on my calendar right now. As soon as Finding Gold by Saul Cohen comes out, I'm going to get that bad boy. I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to give it a read, and I'm going to look at learning more, because I'm guessing in the book. I mean, I've learned so much from you today on our show, but I'm guessing that the book is just going to deep dive into so many of these things, and I'm excited to see the checklist at the end of the book. I love the advice that you've given. So if you're out there today, put it on your calendar. Be looking for Finding Gold, Saul Cohen, on Amazon, coming up mid-September. Very, very exciting to do that, and to get that book and put it into the repertoire. We all need a book to read. I mean, there's never ending learning that needs to go on for an entrepreneur. So very excited about that. And then if somebody wants to connect on LinkedIn, and you'll drop a link, we'll put it into the show notes for a free consultation. If anybody wants to go through, take their business. That's really what it's about, taking your business to the next level and working with the team at Expert Eye. I've got one final question for you. You've been so gracious with your time this morning. We've got a big billboard, a whiteboard on the side of the freeway. You put one word, one sentence, one phrase. What do you want to leave with the world today?
Be grateful and thankful for everything that you have.
Be grateful and that's always great advice. That's world class, because life can change so quickly at the blink of an eye. So be grateful and be thankful. You heard it here from Saul Cohen. This has been the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. We are back 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Tuesday. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Saul, thank you so much for being just an incredible guest and sharing so much of your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've had a great conversation. It's been great.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.